Hello. Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchet Sukhasvarupaya Swami Netapaharine. So we are coming towards the end of this lecture on realization by Vivekananda, and the first part of it was a free translation of a substantial part of the Kathopanishad. And once he has finished with it, now he is giving essentially what it means for us. Yeah? And the first paragraph, which we had read last time, was essentially saying that people have different goals, different ideals, and it is not appropriate to evaluate another's goals, another's central intentions in terms of one's own. This is probably largely inspired by Sri Ramakrishna's saying that yatomat tatopat. So basically we go through various paths which depend on the constitution of our mind, and if one is sincere and wants to follow it till the end, then whatever path we take is going to reach the culmination in course of time. And so in the previous paragraph, what he had said was that essentially the dog's joys and the spiritual man's joys or the scientist's joys are not the same. And therefore one should not evaluate everything in terms of the goal of sense enjoyment. This is the context of where we had stopped last time. I'll read the next paragraph and then we'll go on to see how he gives a subtler and more incisive analysis of this same problem. The enjoyments of the senses sometimes assume another phase which is dangerous and tempting. You will always hear the idea in very old times in every religion that a time will come when all the miseries of life will cease and only its joys and pleasures will remain, and this earth will become a heaven. That I do not believe. This earth will always remain this same world. It is a most terrible thing to say, yet I do not see my way out of it. The misery in the world is like chronic rheumatism in the body. Drive it from one part and it goes to another. Drive it from there and you will feel it somewhere else. Whatever you do, it is still there. In olden times, people lived in forests and ate each other. In modern times, they do not eat each other's flesh, but they cheat one another. Whole countries and cities are ruined by cheating. That does not show much progress. I do not see that what you call progress in the world is other than the multiplication of desires. If one thing is obvious to me, it is this, that desires bring all misery. It is the state of the beggar who is always begging for something and unable to see anything without the wish to possess it, is always longing for more. If the power to satisfy our desires is increased in arithmetical progression, the power of desire is increased in geometrical progression. The sum total of happiness and misery in this world is at least the same throughout. If a wave rises in the ocean, it makes a hollow somewhere. If happiness comes to one man, unhappiness comes to another, or perhaps to some animal. Men are increasing in numbers and some animals are decreasing. We are killing them off and taking their land. We are taking all means of sustenance from them. How can we say then that happiness is increasing? The strong race eats up the weaker. But do you think that the strong race will be very happy? No. They will begin to kill each other. I do not see on practical grounds how this world can become a heaven. Facts are against it. On theoretical grounds also, I see it cannot be. So he'll give the more conceptual framework behind this in the next paragraph. But here, he's essentially describing the state of the world as we know it. And what is the position that he is criticizing here? It is a certain primitive religion where there's this natural human desire for joy, for happiness, for pleasure. And then there are various explanations. Well, and there are different kinds of explanations, and one of which is reincarnation. The Christians and Muslims believe in a day of reckoning, etc., etc. But these are all kind of speculative explanations. But what any of these theories, what they fail to address is precisely this fact that, look, if the desire for any human being is for joy, is for pleasure, is for happiness, how is it that it gives rise to work that is not good? And the answer to that is really, you cannot get an answer to that except from a non-dual standpoint. It's basically that good and bad are not two separate things. It's the same thing viewed from different lenses that we call good or bad. And so, if we are to expect that this earth becomes a heaven, becomes all good, it's essentially saying that we'll have only one side of the coin and refuse to look at the other side. The other side will be non-existent. A more mature philosophy of life is something that embraces both what we call good and bad, and essentially takes a step back to see that in this larger scheme of things, there is good that happens to one, there is bad that happens to one. I could be the subject of either. But if there is a detachment from these effects, then the sense of being intensely reactive, oh, this is happening to me, this is good that is happening to me, getting overjoyed, or this is bad that is happening to me, and I getting miserable. These extreme emotional reactions, these decrease. And it is once these emotional reactions decrease that one understands that, oh, the world becoming all good is not really what we wanted. What we wanted was this world becomes all good for me. This subjective analysis is performed, and one understands that there is absolutely no reason why the whole world should subordinate its functioning to my puny will. And then what creeps in, what slowly starts sinking in, is that this good and bad are things that happen, and one starts learning to be less affected by them as one goes on. The position of this is what is called the Purva Mimamsakas, the Karma Kandins. They essentially go on the basis of karma and karma alone. Yeah? That means essentially that work gives rise to its fruits. Essentially, the principle of causation applied to the human dimension of performing actions and getting its fruits. The key point here is the agency that is involved. If I am the doer, whoever this I is, then the fruits of the action come there. But this I, to whom these fruits of the action come, are typically not an analyzed datum. One starts analyzing, and then one gets at one of 2 points of view. A, that this empirical I that we assume to be the center of the universe is just a temporary fake construct. This is what Jagat Mithyatva means in Vedanta or Shunyata in Buddhism. Or equivalently, there's a positive side to it, which is that this I, its real dimension, is universal. It's universal, and that Vedanta says is, so for example, when Vedanta defines God, it does not define it in terms of some deity. It says samashti avachinna chaitanya, which means basically all as the limiting adjunct or the limiting name for consciousness. Consciousness qualified by all. That is what Vedanta calls Ishvara. And so, if one looks at the positive aspect of things, then what is happening is that, yes, this something good or bad is happening to me, simultaneously something good or bad is happening in the world, and the sum total of it is not changing. In other words, the real locus of this I is not getting affected. Not getting affected by work. Na karmana vardhate na kaniyan. This is from Brihadaranyaka. So it's not something that increases, becomes more valuable by work or good work, nor does it decrease by bad work. In other words, this discovery of an aspect of our psyche, which is A, universal, B, not caught within the framework of causality. In another place, Vivekananda describes Maya as space, time, and causation. But when one starts analyzing, where is this space, where is this time, where is this causation? These are fundamental mental constructs. It is through these mental constructs that we understand the world. But where do they arise? They arise in one's mind. Can we see where it arises in our psyche? This is what subjective inquiry is about. Catching hold of this place where these notions arise and seeing them from a distance. As soon as one detaches from them and sees these concepts arising and falling, then their permanence or their permanent hold on one's psyche starts decreasing. And if one does not inquire into that, if one takes causality and space and time as granted, as not something that we are going to inquire into, then one is forced into this dualistic framework of good and bad. And the Purvamimamsa or the Karmakandins stand of good work is going to bring you good fruits, bad work is going to bring you bad fruits. But in some sense, this is a very naive attitude. So, in Song of the Sannyasis, Vivekananda says this. Good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law, but whoso wears a form must wear the chain. Then he says, too true, but far beyond both name and form is Atman ever free. And it is this freedom and unconditioned joy that one is after. Unconditioned. Unconditioned in the sense that when one starts asking for joy, it is not something that comes with its opposite, which is misery, but is asking for what is the essence of joy itself. And this psychological reaction which we call joy, if it comes as an effervescence of the mind, then it is going to go away. Vedanta gives all kinds of technical explanations. This is called vritti gyan. So essentially the mind springs forth and reflects that joy. And that is what we call, I am feeling joyful. Or mind is clear and full of knowledge. Yeah? That's also an aspect of the mind. But then one asks, where is this knowledge? Where is this joy itself? The essence of it. And once one starts inquiring, this process, it's an ongoing process. It's not something that we start today and end tomorrow. But it's a constant ongoing process. And it basically says that there is a larger cosmic dimension to it, which is not conditioned by my individual prejudices, by my individual biases. And so these can be removed slowly. That's the point of this. And so here, what Vivekananda says is that this is the practical reason why he says that this notion of heaven on earth is merely wishful thinking, because it assumes that this causal structure is something fixed, and we have to understand joy and sorrow and other effects in terms of it, without going beyond. If one desires to go beyond, then I mean, what one is pointing, what he is going to point the way to in the next paragraph is that this is not an adequate framework. One has to probe beyond. This is the last sentence of this paragraph. On theoretical grounds also, I see it cannot be. What are the theoretical grounds? Perfection is always infinite. See, here is the thing, that the aspiration, anything where somebody feels limited, is a cause for pain, cause for dissatisfaction. So what are we really aspiring for? What are we really aspiring for when we claim we are seeking joy? And this answer comes that, look, we are really aspiring for something which is not conditioned. If something is conditioned by space, time and causation, it's going to come and it's going to go. Perhaps after a long time, perhaps after a short time, but it is not something that is going to be permanent. When we say that something is permanent, what do we really mean? We mean that it is not caught within the framework of time. Time does not limit it. Space. So, for example, see somebody outside and feel that, okay, my satisfaction is being hindered by this idea of somebody or some things outside. That's space limiting our source of satisfaction. And most importantly, this notion of causation, which says that I have done such and such things, this will lead to such and such good fruits or bad fruits, and either I get it or I don't get it, and brings all kinds of misery in the train. Yeah? So what are we really aspiring for? We are really aspiring for perfection, which is, the best word for it is always infinite. Why do we aspire for it? And this is the next sentence. We are this infinite already, and we are trying to manifest that infinity. Essentially, say that, okay, there is this thing that I instinctively know is my own nature, but I cannot express it. This is the real source of dissatisfaction. This source, this infinite, is there in our hearts all the time and lets us know its messages through faint echoes, faint messages, and we are typically unaware of these messages that come from the deepest part of our psyche. And when we start listening to that, then our minds turn inwards towards that source of satisfaction, unconditioned satisfaction, joy, knowledge, that is there always, not caught within this framework of space, time and causation. Again, as he said, this is something to be cultivated. It's not something that we do in a day, but it is essentially that source is there within us. We are trying to manifest that infinity. You and I and all beings are trying to manifest it. So far, it is all right. But from this fact, some German philosophers have started a peculiar theory that this manifestation will become higher and higher until we attain perfect manifestation, until we have become perfect beings. What is meant by perfect manifestation? Perfection means infinity, and manifestation means limit. And so it means that we shall become unlimited limiteds, which is self-contradictory. See, a perfect logical contradiction is what he shows up here. This is probably Nietzsche that he is referring to. Essentially, this is a recasting of the heaven on earth theory, which says that there will be this expression of the infinite in this world, or manifestation of the infinite in this world. This position, it's a subtler position than the heaven on earth theory. It's a more refined position. It's the word heaven on earth is being replaced by perfection on earth. Yeah? Perfection means, and what is perfection? And that he unravels it. And perfection is understood to be infinite. And as soon as it comes out in a manifestation, it is basically a limited thing. So how can that principle, which is unlimited, become limited? This is the statement that is being talked about. Yeah? Does that mean we do not practice? We do. But not with an aim to expressing that infinity in our day-to-day life. What is more appropriate would be to tune this psychophysical being, this individual I which we are aware of, to tune it to this nature of the infinite that we are aware of. That is something that is there in our hands. Slowly, what happens is that if it gets tuned, then what happens? One of two things. From the point of view of jnana, it's basically what creeps in. This is this detachment from good and bad. This is called vairagya in the path of jnana. And it's the same thing in the path of devotion. It is called self-surrender, which means this God, which is supposed to be the consciousness influenced, qualified by the all, one surrenders one's small will to this cosmic will, which means whatever happens is fine for me. Yeah? This is what Sharanagati, practice of Sharanagati is in the path of devotion. Essentially, it's saying the same thing, but from two different points of view. Okay. And so it means, but then, so this is the tuning that is being advocated as a practice, not the expression of the infinite in and through this limited medium. That is not possible. And this is the counter that he is giving to the German philosophers. Such a theory, this expression, we shall become unlimited limiteds. Such a theory may please children, but it is poisoning their minds with lies and is very bad for religion. But we know that this world is a degradation, that man is a degradation of God, and that Adam fell. There is no religion today that does not teach that man is a degradation. We have been degraded down to the animal and are now going up to emerge out of this bondage. But we shall never be able entirely to manifest the infinite here. We shall struggle hard, but there will come a time when we shall find that it is impossible to be perfect here, when we are bound by the senses. And then the march back to our original state of infinity will be sounded. This is renunciation. We shall have to get out of the difficulty by reversing the process by which we got in, and then morality and charity will begin. What is the watchword of all ethical codes? Not I, but thou. And this I is the outcome of the infinite behind, trying to manifest itself on the outside world. This little I is the result, and it will have to go back and join the infinite, its own nature. Every time you say, not I, my brother, but thou, you are trying to go back, and every time you say I and not thou, you take the false step of trying to manifest the infinite through the sense world. That brings struggles and evils into the world. But after a time, renunciation must come. Eternal renunciation. The little I is dead and gone. Why care so much for this little life? All these vain desires of living and enjoying this life here or in some other place bring death. All heavens and earths and hells, all hopes and fears. Yeah? Again, Song of the Sannyas. If we are developed from animals, the animals also may be degraded men. How do you know it is not so? You have seen that the proof of evolution is simply this. You find a series of bodies from the lowest to the highest rising in a gradually ascending scale. But from that, how can you insist that it is always from the lower upward and never from the higher downward? The argument applies both ways, and if anything is true, I believe it is that the series is repeating itself in going up and down. How can you have evolution without involution? Our struggle for the higher life shows that we have been degraded from a higher state. It must be so, only it may vary as to details. I always cling to the idea set forth with one voice by Christ, Buddha, and the Vedanta, that we must all come to perfection in time, but only by giving up this imperfection. This world is nothing. It is at best only a hideous caricature, a shadow of the reality. We must go to the reality. Renunciation will take us to it. Renunciation is the very basis of our true life. Every moment of goodness and real life that we enjoy is when we do not think of ourselves. This little separate self must die. Then we shall find that we are in the real, and that reality is God, and He is our own true nature, and He is always in us and with us. Let us live in Him and stand in Him. It is the only joyful state of existence. Life on the plane of the Spirit is the only life, and let us all try to attain to this realization. So this is where it's almost invariable that Vivekananda's lectures, they rise slowly, and the last few paragraphs culminate in a crescendo. It's almost like an orchestra culminating in the note that is the highest. Because this is essentially the truth without any conditioning. What does he talk about in the end? See, essentially, this business about not I but thou, it's not something that is specific to any individual or any walk of life. Human society is built in such a way that organizations, institutions serve a larger purpose than that of an individual. That work atmosphere, that work setup allows us to devalue or decrease the value of this individual I and identify it with the larger purpose that that organization serves. And invariably, a reasonable organization, a hospital or an educational institution, whatever, these are all serving some larger purpose. And if one identifies oneself with this larger purpose, this is something that we can do. It's a practical thing. It's not something that that's something esoteric. It's something that is the easiest thing, that is the best thing to do in our day-to-day life. It is being aware of this larger purpose of any organization that we belong to and subordinating our individual will to that. What happens as a result? It's a practice, and then this dimensions of the I start becoming larger. What we call, basically, one loves the ideal or the larger entity more than one's limited being. Yeah? This is the practice. Again, the practice is really being aware of the larger purpose that this individuated I is serving and melting it into or submitting it to the larger ethos of the organization or the body to which one belongs. Yeah? So this is essentially the end of this particular lecture. And let me just read this, because I think no amount of explanation is going to convey the poetry that is there in Vivekananda. So I'll just read it out again and stop. Our struggle for the higher life shows that we have been degraded from a high state. It must be so, only it may vary as to details. I always cling to the idea set forth with one voice by Christ, Buddha and the Vedanta, that we must all come to perfection in time, but only by giving up this imperfection. This world is nothing. It is at best only a hideous caricature, a shadow of the reality. We must go to the reality. Renunciation will take us to it. Renunciation is the very basis of our true life. Every moment of goodness and real life that we enjoy is when we do not think of ourselves. This little separate self must die. Then we shall find what we are in the real, and that reality is God. And He is our own true nature, and He is always in us and with us. Let us live in Him and stand in Him. It is the only joyful state of existence. Life on the plane of the Spirit is the only life, and let us all try to attain to this realization. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.